What's up, PlusUltraFam? It's me, back again, once again, with the second part to What If Goku landed on Vampa. I gave you guys a goal to reach to get a part 2 to this, and you guys smashed it. So let's hop into a quick recap and get back into the story. When we last left off, a friendship between Bardock and Paragus changed an entire timeline. Beast was spared, Bardock was considered a Saiyan elite, and, trusting Paragus, sends him his son Kakarot to the planet Vampa, as he was distrustful of Frieza betraying the Saiyans. The remaining Saiyans were reunited and raided a planet for Frieza. During the battle, Vegeta and Broly were lost, and Frieza created the Nappa Force to keep the Saiyans around a bit longer. We're gonna pick our story right back up where we left it off, but with a different perspective, that of Vegeta and Broly. Yes, they hadn't died, but merely been unconscious under tons of rubble. The two young Saiyans are finally starting to dig their way out, enough to see the light and smell the fresh air. It had been a few hours since they had woken up, which was maybe a day or so since the raid had taken place. The two hadn't spoken to each other much, other than Vegeta raging at Broly for getting them into this situation, and Broly quietly working on escaping. Finally, the two push a massive rock off the pile and free themselves, looking around to see absolutely no one around. The two decide to start a search from the air as their scouters had been destroyed in Broly's rampage. This proved fruitless, however, as they couldn't even find the ship they had arrived in. They'd been left. This realization pisses Vegeta off, while Broly was convinced that Kakarot or his father would not leave him behind. Before they can really think of a next move, however, they see a large number of attack pods landing on the planet. They fly towards the crash site, relieved that the other Saiyans had returned for them, though those that stepped out of the pods were Frieza Force, but they were not Saiyans. Vegeta greeted them with his usual bravado and ordered them to send for 2 more attack pods so that they could leave, but the soldiers just laughed and raised their blasters towards them.
Lord Frieza officially sent us here for cleanup efforts to get this planet ready for its buyers. But he told us there'd be a bonus in for us if we found the body of Prince Vegeta and brought it to him. Looks like we have some work to do, boys.
Vegeta and Broly glance at each other, unimpressed, and simultaneously lift their hands, blasting the soldier to oblivion. They were tired, but not too tired. Only around 70% of their total power at the moment. The remaining 4 warriors then took this as their chance to charge the boys, splitting up between the two. Vegeta could fight one-on-one pretty well, but with the flurry of attacks on from 2 opponents combined with his own fatigue, he was slowly losing ground and taking on even more damage. Broly was having similar issues, but thankfully, every time he'd miss an attack or be interrupted from finishing off an opponent, he'd grow angrier and angrier, and his power would raise by tiny increments. But he was also being pushed back little by little. Finally, a soldier is smart enough to grab Vegeta's tail. I realize in canon, Nappa demonstrates a resistance to this, but I don't think it's far-fetched to theorize that Vegeta's resistance would either be building up or nowhere near the amount he needs to be completely immune to it. As a result, the 2 soldiers able to immobilize him by grabbing his tail and begin to wail down on him. With it looking more and more like Vegeta was going to die, one of the soldiers, realizing that the others were having trouble with Broly, flies over to help. Through swollen eyes and haggard breathing, Vegeta looks up at his opponent, watching as he prepares a final blow. But to both his and his opponent's shock, a scaly blue hand slashes through the soldier's neck, ending his life right there on the spot. The figure spins and blasts the soldier flying towards Broly, giving them the same fate. Broly finally grows angry enough and roars out as he's able to injure one of his opponents enough to follow up with a killing blow. The other soldier met a similar fate soon afterwards. Vegeta looked up to his savior, tiredly, thinking one thing before he passed out. Kanassa. Later, Vegeta wakes up to a small fire built in front of him, and Broly eating next to him, even offering him a bit of food when he realized he's awake. Across from the fire was the adult Kanassa that had saved them. He looked at Vegeta just suspiciously as Vegeta looked at him, and began to speak. My name is Tulo. I was a warrior who protected Kanassa, but you monsters came. The tone was bitter and full of hate, but it begged the question, why save them? My people have the unique ability of premonitions. We're able to see into the future somewhat. It is difficult to control, but once you've trained in it, it is a powerful tool. I foresaw you marauders months ago, and trained the capable men of the planet to fight you, while our women and children fled to a safer planet. I thought my people would live on, but I've had another vision. The man you served in doing this would come back, again and again, destroying us to sell our home, over and over. The cycle wouldn't stop. As for why I saved you, the 2 of you have more potential than I've ever seen in my life, both in terms of power and in terms of changing the future. Vegeta couldn't help but boast at having his own power recognized, even though by a weaker race. while Broly's mind was too worried for his family to take pride in that. Join me. We can save my family, yours, and dethrone your master. As you've just seen, he has no loyalty towards you, so why have any towards him? Vegeta was hesitant. He'd rather set out on his own and cultivate his strength before getting revenge on Frieza. It was hard enough dealing with the quiet Broly as a lackey, even though he didn't really follow orders very well. And training with a weaker race seemed like a waste of time to him. While Broly, on the other hand, was the complete opposite.
If you'll help me save Dad and the others, I'll do whatever you like.
Vegeta grumbles at his minions' rebellion, but decides he better go along with the two and gain whatever little increase in strength Tulo's training would provide. It'd also give him more time to figure out how to make that power Broly held his own. So with that done, the three finished their meal and stealed the Frieza Force pods still on the planet, reprogramming them from a new destination and flying off. But we're actually going to have a bit of a time skip from here on out. Actually, a very big one. 9 years in fact. And we return to see what has happened with the Saiyans still under Frieza's rule. The most notable change happens with Kakarot. He's been training since the day he lost Broly. At first, trying to reach a level comparable to Broly, and soon after that, just wanting to get stronger for the survival of his team, so as not to lose anyone else ever again. I kinda based this version of Kakarot off the version of Kakarot and Dragon Garrow Lee's Super Vegeta in the series. Keep in mind, that version with no training from actual masters like in canon went from power level of around whatever he was as a kid to being able to defeat a version of Vegeta that was estimated to be over 20,000. So training for him is pretty beneficial, and I'll link that story's author in the description. One way of Kakarot training would be to challenge Nappa, who was all too happy to give the boy some harsh training before throwing him into a healing chamber. He'd also get busy sometimes, so this would mean that he'd have to give Kakarot another way to train while he did things. Remember, he's now the leader of the Nappa Force. So he'd begin setting Kakarot up against multiple Cybermen in large training bouts, which wouldn't satisfy the boy's lust for more power. So, because of this, Nap begins to cultivate and breed stronger and stronger strains of Cybermen. If the Cybermen from the original timeline were equal to or a little bit stronger than Raditz, then these Cybermen, by the time Nappa has pushed them to their limit, they are a little over twice as strong as that. The Cybermen also became very good aids during battle, since the team could grow in number at any given moment. We could even have Beats design a machine that can spread the Cybermen across a planet before the attack even begins. And side note, I honestly just scared myself with the idea of the end of your world kind of starting with a Cyberman invasion. It's kind of creepy. But getting back on topic, meanwhile, Frieza had slowed down on sending the team on extremely dangerous missions. He'd gotten rid of Vegeta, who had been the strongest of the Saiyans, so at this point it made no sense to put the group in a position to power up even more from Zenkai boosts. Unfortunately for the Saiyans, Kakarot's growth and resemblance to Bardock, remember, he was a Saiyan elite that fought against Frieza as a Great Ape before the Saiyans were wiped out. This reignites Frieza's nervousness at the Saiyans' growing power, so to cull this, he sends Dodoria and his squad to the planet the Saiyans had just recently conquered, directly after the battle when they'd be nice and tired and ripe for the picking. But he's beyond surprised and angered when the next day Kakarot and the rest of the Nappa Force enter his throne room and regretfully inform him that Dodoria had sought to betray Lord Frieza. In truth, he just begged for his life and offered to assist the Saiyans before Kakarot and the others killed him. Now, Frieza could have just wiped out the Saiyans here and now. By the way the Saiyans acted, Dodoria had told them why he was sent to attack them, especially Kakarot, who had no poker face whatsoever and was full on snarling at the Emperor. Remember, Kakarot had been sent to Vampa with a message for Paragus, detailing Bardock's fears about Frieza's betrayal. They never had concrete evidence until now, so it's kinda hard for the young kid to stay calm. Frieza was literally just about to do away with the Saiyans when Paragus spoke up. He asked if he could speak to Frieza without the other Saiyans around. This confused everyone, but Frieza didn't care. He speaks to the Saiyan one-on-one to get his little fears out of the way before going on and killing the others and him as well. Once the others leave, Paragus cuts directly to the chase. Yes, the Saiyans currently knew Frieza had ordered Dodoria to make a move against them and wipe them out, but he had a proposition. Now this intrigues Frieza, as it is a Saiyan using his head and not his hands, so to speak, though he's being a bit too overconfident. Paragus goes on to explain himself. If Frieza were to wipe out the Saiyans, he'd lose a group that was almost as profitable to him as the Ginyu Force, so it'd be a waste to kill them. Instead, Frieza just needed to soothe the savage beast, so to speak. If Frieza promoted Paragus to Dodoria's former position, then it would show the Saiyans that Frieza was loyal to them, and it would make Dodoria seem less credible. especially since Paragus was weaker than Midoriya. It would show some good faith. In return for this, the Emperor would receive greater loyalty from what would soon become his most effective squad. The Galactic Emperor actually ponders this. It wasn't exactly a bad deal. Promote one monkey and receive better loyalty from the rest. There was also the fact that Paragus seemed to be quick to sell the others of his race, so he could easily become a spy if he needed it. Frieza accepts this offer and calls the other Saiyans back into the room. He then sincerely apologizes about that mean old Midoriya. He didn't realize his hatred for the Saiyans had been that potent, and to drag his good name through the mud, how dreadful. The Saiyans don't believe a word of this, but when Frieza announces Paragus' promotion, they are shocked. The Nappa Force accept Frieza's apology, and afterwards, the Saiyans leave. Kakarot speaks to Nappa and Raditz, explaining they'll all need to keep an eye on both Paragus and Frieza from now on, since Frieza had showed his true colors, and Paragus seemed to be acting in his own self-interest. As for Beats, well, he wasn't 100% sure where his loyalty lay, but for now, he could trust these two. On the other side of the galaxy, we catch back up with a fully grown Vegeta and Broly. The two in tandem with Tulo have been training and amassing allies for the coming revolution. Both have grown immensely in power, and under Tulo's guidance, have been attacking Frieza-controlled planets while concealing their identity. He explained that keeping their faces hidden would allow them the element of surprise, and it would make sure their fellow Saiyans were not suspects under Frieza's rule. Now, Vegeta and Broly aren't really close per se. They're loyal to each other, but it's more just being allies, more akin to Vegeta and Piccolo's relationship in canon than anything else. Broly had even revealed that Paragus ordered him to attack Vegeta, but the prince admits he pretty much figured that out. Paragus was pretty hostile towards him when they met, and Broly wasn't even supposed to be attacking Kanassa in the same location as him anyway. In the end, he'd assumed Broly was just too stupid to plan it on his own, and decided to just make him his personal lackey. Yeah, he's pretty much still on the idea that he's Broly's boss for some reason. The entire rebellion had grown, but nowhere near the size it needed to be to take on the Empire. Now, Vegeta still fancied himself the leader of their little band of rebels, but it was really Tulo who leads everyone, with Broly and Vegeta being very close to generals or admirals in a way. Though Vegeta has calmed down a bit, he's gotten much more powerful and been exposed to a lot of different races in the rebel army, including an older Yardratian by the name of Hushu, who had taught he and Broly a few little tricks. Tulo's ability to see into the future had made him an excellent leader, and great at planning attacks, but his recent vision was very troubling. He foresaw the young Kakarot Broly had spoken to him about attacking and being killed by Frieza. This concerned him, as the boy had been valued as a powerful ally in the coming war. But the timeline changed soon after, and Kakarot was fine, just training against Cyberman like he always did. Still, this was a problem. If he was willing to do it in one branch, it was possible that he might do it in another. He calls Broly into his room and assigns him a special mission. Hearing the details of said mission, the usually stoic and calm Broly actually gets excited. He suits up in Frieza Force gear, even putting on a helmet to conceal his identity. With his disguise in place, the large Saiyan employs two of the tricks he'd learned in the rebellion. First, he suppressed his power to about the average Frieza soldier's power level. Then, he put two fingers on his head, sensed out Kakarot's power, and disappeared. While Kakarot is training, a random Frieza soldier just appears in the room, interrupting him. Before Kakarot can threaten him to leave, the soldier lifts his hands and blasts a camera that is monitoring the room and the lock to the door, trapping them both inside. Kakarot takes this as a threat and attacks the soldier, but he shows a lot of skill in dodging the young Saiyan's blows, even tripping him up a few times and making him hit his head. Remember, Broly can't unleash his full power because it raised too many questions. Broly decides to end the fight here and now and grabs Kakarot's tail, but he's shocked when he resisted and he's actually able to land a kick on the face and knock Broly's helmet off, even giving him a bloody nose. Broly groans, but chuckles. "Not bad, little brother, you've gotten strong." With that, Kakarot is finally able to recognize the older man. As unsane-like as it is, the kid actually gets very emotional. Remember, Kakarot isn't the typical Saiyan. Even with the upbringing of this timeline, the people in his family are usually very sympathetic and emotional. Plus, he's still technically a kid and dealing with all the emotions of one. So it'd be a pretty tearful reunion. Once Broly is able to calm Kakarot down, he tells him everything that's been going on with Rebellion, and from now on that he needs to be the perfect Frieza Force soldier. The rebels have a plan, and he can't break off from them. Broly then grabs the younger Saiyan by the hand, remembering what Tulo had ordered. "If you gauge the boy to be worthy of it, teach him. showed him how to conceal his power. He'd continue to grow stronger and avoid Frieza's ire. He'd also be a man on the inside for us to take advantage of if he could move around undetected. Broly and Kakarot are then transported to a distant planet, and Broly asks Kakarot if he would like to fight, exciting the younger Saiyan. There, he unleashes his full power, and this shocks Kakarot. They have a fun battle with Broly's surprise at Kakarot's sheer determination to keep fighting. Even when completely outmatched, he thought of some really off-the-wall strategies that really helped him out in battle. He ends the fight early, only because he didn't have a lot of time, so he had to teach Kakarot how to control and sense his ki. It takes a bit, but once he sees that Kakarot has a feel for it, he takes him back to the Frieza Force base in the training room, which still hadn't been opened. The two say goodbye, and Broly plans to come back and see him again, and keep him updated on what their plans are, and maybe even show him some more tricks. Kakarot waves him off, and once he's gone, he blasts the door to their training room open, shocking the soldiers who were still trying to open it. He was beat up, but grinning like a maniac, and soon passed out. Later in the healing tank, Kakarot couldn't stop smiling. But that PlusUltraFams will be leaving the story off for right now. Now, first off, massive thanks to you guys for helping the channel reach over 20,000 subscribers. I've been making videos for less than a year, so this is a really big accomplishment to me. Also, really hope you guys enjoyed this part, since you did reach the view goal in the last one to earn it. And I'm hoping you enjoyed it, since it's a bit more of a narrative driven style than the last part was. I already have the What If Goku Landed on Namek series, where there's training and an epic like all out battle with Frieza in the latest part, so I want to differentiate this story from that one by making this one a little bit more strategic and kind of space operating and kind of evoke that same Star Wars feeling. If you like this direction, I've actually left a poll in the top iCard with a few different, degrees of enjoyment. So give me your feedback, vote in those polls and let me know where you want me to take the story for the final part. And feel free to comment what you liked or what you didn't like, and even any plot holes or inconsistencies you might have seen or something like that. Help me make this story better, because I really want this story to be a fan-driven series, because without you guys, it wouldn't have been continued. But as always, leave a like, share with a friend if you don't mind. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss my uploads. And as always, go beyond, plus ultra. See you guys.